There's just something about a good sports romance. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. I am so hyped to be doing another Kindle Unlimited reading vlog. How long has it been since I've said those words? I think at least 6 months, which is kind of wild to me considering how much I adore Kindle Unlimited and how often I am perusing the catalog looking for my next read. I'm bringing the series back on my channel, okay? So if you've been missing these KU reading vlogs, buckle up. They're coming back in a big way. I'm gonna ease myself in today, reading 2 sports romances with the same name. I've been craving a sports romance, and as I was trying to put together a list of things, I realized that 2 books I was super interested in, 2 hockey romances, have the exact same name. And how fun is that? We can compare them. We can read them together and see which of the face-offs wins this face-off. Okay, I know it's kind of corny. I am excited about it. We're gonna read 2 hockey romances. I have no idea what either of these is really about, but I'm assuming they are maybe sort of rivals to loversy, given the face-off, title. Regardless, we're gonna find out together. But before we do that, I have to tell you something else I'm excited about. The sponsor of today's video, Nurex. As someone who is on camera every day, I really value my skin looking as good as possible and also being as healthy as possible. And I only want to use things that are tailored to me, not just generic over-the-counter solutions. Nurex is a digital healthcare platform that offers more than 50 clinically proven treatments for melasma, acne, and anti-aging. This includes powerful skincare ingredients like retinol, which I'm sure we all know by now is the top of the line solution for honestly so many different problems. Nurex connects you with a licensed medical provider to address your unique health concerns and receive a personalized treatment plan. The best part is you don't have to wait a couple of months to see someone in person. You can complete a medical consultation anytime and have access to 24/7 care and support if you ever have any questions. Nurex has your back. Thanks to Nurex for sponsoring this video. Taking control of your health starts here. Go to nurex.com/Chandler Ainsley to get started or click the link in my description. That's nurx.com/Chandler Ainsley. Now let's get into the vlog. Let's see which of these hockey romances is the superior face-off. Shall we? Jump scare. I'm here to do my makeup and talk to you about the first book that I have decided to read for this video. First face-off to face-off, shall we say. Face-Off by Chelsea Curto. This book is pretty fun. We've got a female hockey player and a male hockey player. Let me just tell you, I'm enjoying this a lot more than I enjoyed The Graham Effect, which had a kind of similar setup. So this book's about our 2 main characters, Maverick and Emmy. Emmy is in a AAA sort of farm league NHL team. I guess it wouldn't be NHL if she's on a farm team, but you know what I mean. She's been playing hockey for quite a while. She is really good at what she does, and the team that she's on is very successful, but she has been called up to the big leagues, to one of the worst teams in the NHL, the Stars, and the Stars are located in DC, I believe. That's one thing I have to point out that I'm not really loving right off the bat is the use of an actual NHL team name, not in the location of said NHL team. This is not the Dallas Stars. This is the DC Stars, which I think is an interesting choice. I wish we would have just come up with a different name is all I'm trying to say. Not a big deal, but it did kind of throw me off at first. Anyway, Emmy has been called up to this NHL team that is not very good at their job, but they do have one pretty successful and well-paid player named Maverick. He's a bit of a ladies' man. He's very handsome and talented, blah, 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 the typical playboy sort of situation. And whenever Emmy shows up to her first day to kind of meet the team captain, Maverick, he treats her like she is not an NHL player. He doesn't realize the Emerson, that's her full name, the Emerson that he's meeting is a woman. And so he's like, oh, hey, baby, what are you doing here? Shit like that, not realizing that she is the person that he's meeting. So obviously, I don't know if I'd call that a meet cute situation, but it's definitely a situation and where they met. This kind of sets their relationship off kind of on the wrong foot. Emmy is not impressed by Maverick and his ladies man shit. He, on the other hand, is really impressed by her and finds her to be not only attractive, but very much his type. And that is something that I do like in this book, is that the hero is really into athletic women and he's really into a woman who can kick his ass. I think that's really necessary in a romance like this. You definitely don't want a hero who's intimidated by a badass heroine who is just trying to do what she loves. So I am really appreciating that. I do like too how the relationship has changed pretty quickly. I don't love when heroes or heroines hold grudges for too long for kind of, I don't want to say silly things. It's not silly to be upset that someone didn't know who you were and treated you poorly, kind of like Maverick does to Emmy at the beginning of the book, but she kind of gets over it pretty quickly. She's still not impressed by his playboy stuff, but they have kind of a, I would say, unserious sort of rivals to lovers sort of situation going on. He definitely is impressed by her. She is impressed by him as well, but is, just trying to kind of make a name for herself and is kind of just trying to ignore his advances because he is kind of into her. I wouldn't say he hits on her a ton, but he does kind of put a little of that into their relationship. And so far it's just mostly banter. There haven't really been a ton of hockey moments. I think we're gearing up for the first game, which should be an interesting interesting thing. And because our heroine was called up from AAA, like the season has already started, so things are kind of already in full swing, and I'm curious to see what she brings to this team, and also just like what it's like to have a woman on an NHL team. I think in this like world that is being built, she is the first ever woman to play in an NHL game. So I'm really curious to see how it goes. I like too that it feels pretty realistic, I will say too, just like the way that everything is playing out. I like that the guys aren't like misogynist, the other guys on the team. She's not having to face a lot of like shitty behavior by people, even though the hero kind of messes up, which is really nice. I am curious to see like, yeah, how her stats in kind of the farm league kind of stack up to how she's going to perform in this, you know, setting, and if she's going to struggle a little bit. I think that would be realistic, to be honest, and it would be cool to see her, you know, maybe train with the hero and like maybe gain even more skill, but I'm just curious to see where this one goes. So far, I am enjoying it. I will say my one critique so far is that the writing of this book, the point is definitely getting across, but at times, some of the writing feels a little bit less than sophisticated, mostly in situations where we're being introduced to new characters or new ideas. At the beginning, we're introduced to the person that our heroine is living with, Piper, who I believe is like a journalist or like a sports broadcaster. She works for the team. She works for the NHL team as well. When we're introduced to her, I just felt like the writing in that scene felt a little weird. Told things instead of shown things quite a bit. And that's something that I see sometimes in KU writing, especially from newer authors. I don't know how long this author's been writing. I want to say this might be her first book, but I could be totally wrong there, so don't quote me. And just thought was worth pointing out. So like if you pick up this book, you're not kind of thrown off by that. So anyway, I'm going to finish up my makeup and I'm going to get to the 50% mark in this book and then update you on my thoughts and feelings.
All right, let's talk Face Off number 1. Is it really number 1? The first Face Off that we're reading? Let's talk. 50% thoughts. Face Off Chelsea Curto. I don't dislike it. However, this might be one of the longest sex scenes I've ever read in a book. And I'm 50% in now, but the sex scene, I would say, took a good few percentages into my Kindle. You know what I mean? It was like 37% mark, we're getting down and dirty, and then by the 45% mark, we were done. And I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot of sex very early on, a lot of explanation, a lot of dirty talk. If you were someone who is spice averse, mayhap skip this one. It's a lot. It's not like I am prudish. I just think it was a lot. I just think it was a lot of sex. And I should probably explain the rest of what's happening and going on in this book. Should I? All right, let me rewind. So, I think we last spoke. They were about to have their first game. They had their first game. I can't remember if they won or lost. I think they lost. This team is very good, so it's not really that surprising. But at least the team was like connected and they felt good. But the past few games that they've been having haven't been quite as good. They haven't been quite as successful on the ice. This is putting our heroine Emmy in kind of like a bad mood. And so I wouldn't say she's like taking it out on Maverick necessarily, but any sort of like progress they've made in their friendship kind of backtracks at one point. They like take a couple steps forward, take a couple steps back, and then one of the away games that they have, he like comes to her hotel room after the game that was really unsuccessful, and he's like kind of chewing her out, and she's like, why are you chewing me out? You should chew everybody out. And he's like, you know what, you're kind of right, but you're just so damn fine. And then they have really, really, really a lot of sex. Every detail is described, you know, the kind of sex where you're like, it's just not really that hot. I want to turn the page. Here's the deal. Going from banter to sex, there needs to be convincing tension. And the scene that happens like in the hotel room where he like kind of cages her into the wall before they start getting down and dirty, before they decide to have sex, it felt like it was from a movie or a TV show. It felt very rehearsed, and it felt like something that was not super genuine to the characters necessarily. The author was really excited to write a spicy scene, and she didn't quite know how to get from point A to point B in terms of like convincing me that these two had enough tension to have sex, because again, there's like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of situation. And that's how all romance is. If you didn't know, or at least how most of it is written, is characters make progress and then something makes them pull back. Characters make progress, something makes them pull back, until eventually they get to a point where they like break the tension and something happens, you know? The thing is, there was nothing to really explain why our heroine was like in kind of a pissy mood. I mean, yeah, the team's performing poorly. It just wasn't written well enough to where I was like, oh, I understand why she's being a dick to this guy after like having been friends with him and texting him a little bit. It just felt a little weird. And then for that to be the thing that leads to sex, just, it's not, the puzzle pieces are not puzzle piecing. Explanations are not doing a good job at explaining things to me. The sex scene was, I literally cannot reiterate enough how long it was. And I say that, maybe it's just my perception. It probably is just my perception, but pick this book up and let me know. Hilarious, actually just got on Instagram a second ago. I had just finished my Wendy's. I did have some spicy nuggets for dinner. I got on Instagram before I pulled out my camera, and I noticed one of my Instagram friends had like posted a reel about this particular book, snippet of like a highlighted page, and talked about like the smut and stuff, and I was like, I mean, yeah, it's in there. I don't know, again, it didn't feel didn't feel genuine to the characters, how they got to that point, and then also the sex. I was just like, here's the thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not to call myself sexually inexperienced. That's untrue, because I've not had a ton of partners or anything. I guess my question to you is, the way that characters behave in romance novels sometimes, it just has me questioning, like, how are you so comfortable with someone that you don't really know to be talking to that person the way that you are? Like, I'm not saying that people don't have, like, freak nasty hookups or whatever, but the way that they're talking to each other and the way that he's communicating via dirty talk and just, like, explanation when the sex is happening, I don't know, it felt weird. I wouldn't say weird, it just felt like, wow, these two people have been together a long time and they're gonna freak. They're just kind of, you know, into it at this point. Then when you, like, take a step back, you're like, wait, no, these people don't really know each other. If a stranger talked to me like that, like someone I didn't know very well, or even like an acquaintance, a teammate that I had known for I feel like I'd be a little bit like, who gave me the right to talk about my body and my parts and just everything like that? I don't know if any of this is making sense. Anyone else? Like, do you ever just, like, take a step back when you're reading a smut scene and think, like, do people talk like this? Do people actually do this stuff? I mean, I know they do. I don't know. This book has me questioning things. All of this being said, I feel like I'm sounding hypercritical. I'm enjoying it. It's a fine book. I think it's gonna be a 3-star read. It's not exactly what I was looking for, but it's well written enough, I guess. I'm just not, like, feeling a super strong emotional attachment to either character. I'm curious about, I think his name's Hudson, one of the side characters, who is not a playboy. He seems interesting to me, so I would maybe read a book by him or about him. This one I'm just kind of like, I like that we have, you know, a female hockey player in the NHL. I think that's badass, but, like, yeah. There's not a whole lot here. Not a whole lot of depth, not a whole lot of richness, just a whole lot of sex. So, you know, your mileage may vary. Maybe you're into that, and that's fine. No judgment from me. Not totally what I was looking for, so I'm gonna finish this book, and then I'm gonna try something else.
You know that TikTok sound about things getting worser and worser? Well, I have to say, this was kind of disappointing. I think I'm still gonna give it 3 stars because it, like, was not the worst thing I've ever read. But how were there so many sex scenes? Why were there so many sex scenes? I posted a thread a couple of weeks ago that got a lot of people in a tizzy asking why people pick up smutty romances if they have no interest in reading smutty scenes. And I stand by that. I feel like if you are someone who doesn't enjoy sex scenes in your romance, why would you pick up something that you know is going to be smutty, you know? That being said, I think there's a difference between a book having a couple of explicit sex scenes or kind of propel the story forward and you skipping them versus a book having 5+ sex scenes and you getting burnt out and wanting to skip through it, because good God, that's how I felt with this one. I didn't skip the sex scenes. I didn't read them closely because after a while, it's just like, how many ways can you get your hole crammed? I'm not impressed. It doesn't do anything for me. Maybe it's just not for me. Maybe that's the point. So promising, honestly. I liked the idea behind this book, but I don't think it really capitalized on enough of the things that were interesting, which is kind of disappointing. Our heroine is, like, fairly successful in hockey. Our hero gets rid of his womanizing ways to, like, end up with the heroine. And I don't know, I just think that there was a lack of true relationship and character development here, and that's something that I just find as I get old in my old age, like, I want, you know? I want our heroine to grow. I want our hero to grow. And I guess you could say, you know, she grew to learn to trust people. He grew out of his womanizing ways, but, like, that's just not enough for me. Might be enough for this one, but it was not enough for me. I feel like in this book, once the characters had sex, it was like game over. Like, that is all this book is going to be about, and I just don't like that. Like, I need more. I wanted more from the side characters, from the side plots, etc., etc. I don't want to say this is lazy writing, right? Because I think that authors obviously set out to write the stories that they want to write, but getting to know each other was literally just like a game of 20 questions, basically. So much tell, not very much show, too much sex. Not enough romance. I'm bitching. You'd really think that I hated this. I didn't hate it, for the record. And I think if you're looking for something hella smutty, go for it. Next, we're going to be getting onto this. How crazy is this to hold up to my head? This thing is so big. Face Off by Tegan Hunter. And can I say, for the record, I think I've mentioned this in other vlogs, I can double column read this. Like, that's so nice. I feel like I get so much more read. Yeah, I don't feel like I have an official Kindle Scribe review. The battery life's better. It's big. I don't use the little righty tool. What the fuck is that called? Like a pen? How am I allowed to make videos? How am I allowed to speak about books when I'm this unintelligent? It's kind of crazy. I'm gonna read this. I have no idea what this is about. I don't really love the way this guy looks. I'm not saying he's not handsome. I just, something about his gaze is not really doing it for me. We'll see. Let's see how this compares. The face-off of face-offs. If you hear any weird noises in the background, it's probably my cats or me heating up my toaster oven to make a little mini skillet cookie. Pro tip, if you're someone who really likes, what are they called? Pizookies, whatever, from BJ's, or you just want a fucking skillet cookie, you can get the Toll House break and bake cookie dough, break it up, put it in your freezer, and you just pull 1, 2, however many out you want, and put it in a little, like, mini large skillet, make yourself a skillet cookie. I don't know why this was like game-changing information for me, but anytime I want a little treat, that's what I've been doing lately. So anyway, heating up the toaster oven, it might make clicky noises, but I am 20% into Face Off by Tegan Hunter. It's interesting how similar these books are. That all hockey romances are the same, or that all hockey romances called Face Off are the same. I'm not entirely sure, but this one is about our main characters, Lawson and is it Rory? I couldn't tell you, honestly. Lawson is coming home from a bar one night. He's up finding a puppy on the side. I was gonna say on the side of the road. No, behind a dumpster in an alley. Takes the puppy to a veterinary clinic. It just so happens to be the clinic of one of his teammates' twin sisters. And this person does not like him very much because he's a playboy, and I actually don't know exactly why she doesn't like it, but I'm assuming because he's kind of just like a, you know, playboy, fuckboy, whatever. But our heroine is helping our hero out because he has this puppy, and you know, he doesn't know what the fuck to do with it. It's Christmas Eve, I believe, that he finds this puppy, takes the puppy in, they look at the dog together, and he continues to call her for advice about this dog. And now they're going to be putting on some sort of like charity photo shoot or something for the team with a bunch of animals so they can get adopted, and she is going to help coordinate that. I don't know. It's mostly just banter at this point. I feel like we got really quick introduction into these two, and maybe it wouldn't feel so quick if I had read the first book in the series. It's not like I feel like I'm missing a ton of context, but it does feel a little interesting that like brings this dog to this person that he kind of is acquainted with, and now they're texting and like kind of bantering back and forth. Kind of reluctant on her part, but it feels kind of similar again to the other Face Off in that like, you know, he's the playboy, they're having this kind of banter relationship, blah blah blah. But I will say, so far I'm liking the writing of this one quite a bit more. It just feels a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more show, and a little less tell. It's not even like an incredible literary masterpiece or anything. I just do feel like I already know the characters a little bit more, and I'm a little bit more into it. I'm kind of over the like hockey group chats though. I read so many of the like fucking text conversations in the last book, and then it started basically in this book with text conversations, and I'm just like, I'm kind of over the, I'm gonna say found family vibes. I'm just kind of like over the hockey bro thing. I think maybe if I had broken this up with like football, it might have been different. I don't know. I mean, I guess like it's kind of the same vibe in like every sports romance ever, but similar vibes and yet different. I'm curious to see how these books diverge and how different they are as time continues. I don't think I'm far enough into this one to really say definitively whether this one's like the best Face Off book, but I'm gonna keep reading and I'll let you know. Let's ignore the greasy hair. I'm popping in actually because I need to take a shower. I was gonna say 100% into this book. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? No, I'm 50% into the second Face Off by Tegan Hunter, and I think I'm liking this one more. I don't know that it's really that different, strangely, than the last one. This book is very heavy on the dialogue and the getting to know each other. I would say in a way that feels a little bit more organic and a little bit less like 20 questions interview style generic, which I appreciate. There are just so many similarities though. Again, the hero who's kind of a playboy with a reputation. He has a brother who's married to a person who is previously a single mom, kind of like hero in the last book having a best friend who is a single dad. Yeah, I don't know. There's a fair amount of similarities. Also, the like kind of lack of focus on hockey is also kind of the same. I will say the thing that I like, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the last clip, is that heroine isn't really involved in the hockey world. I feel like oftentimes when I read sports romances nowadays, the people know each other because like the heroine's in PR, or the heroine is a player, or the heroine has something to do with the sport. And I like that in this case, the heroine doesn't, and she also has no interest really in the fact that he is a hockey player. Like that's not really her favorite thing ever. I mean, she like watches his hockey games. It's like part of the book, I guess. Well, I'll say part of the book. In the scene I just read, she has like watched a hockey game of his, and like she has one of his jerseys that she took from him. But you know, I like that the heroine's keeping the hero a little bit grounded in this case. Since we last spoke, I mean, honestly, nothing like major has happened. They've mostly just been talking. They had a kissing moment. He and her, they basically are keeping in contact because of this dog. She's getting vaccines. The dog is a girl. Her, because she's a vet, obviously, and a couple of times when he has to go out of town and doesn't have anyone to watch the dog, she will go to his apartment and watch the dog. The dog's name is Daisy, if anyone was curious. I think a book that I'm enjoying, but I think if I were to pit these two against each other in terms of what I think y'all would like more, I think a lot of you would actually prefer the first book because it feels a little bit more fast-paced. It has a slightly more interesting setup, you know, with the heroine being a hockey player as well on the same team, but the smut for that just like kind of took it down a notch for me. Strangely, I think I'm happy with this one. I'm just curious as to what direction we're going in here and like what the conflict of this book's going to be. I don't even think I talked about the conflict in the last book because frankly there really wasn't much of a conflict. This book, what the fuck's the conflict going to be? Like commitment issues? I really don't know, because it doesn't seem like either character is like super afraid of relationships. I mean, she doesn't necessarily want to like get with this guy because she's like, she doesn't really trust him. It's not because she's like been burned in the past, I don't think. The heroine in the last book like had a past relationship that treated her poorly, whatever. All these books are are blending together. All these books, these 2 fucking books that I'm reading back to back are blending together. To be fair, they're very similar. Who knew 2 books with the same topic and the same name could be similar? I was gonna say Rivals to Lovers. This one's not Rivals to Lovers, but that same literal banter and like, you suck. No, you suck. Haha. Like, sort of a fucking terrible job at comparing these books. I think it's because I need to take a shower and clear my mind. I will come back tomorrow, though, to let you know my final thoughts and feelings, and also which of these books I think you should read, and which of the face-offs is winning the face-off. All right, my friends, I finished Face-Off number 2. Face Off by Tegan Hunter, and it is kind of crazy to me how similar these books are. Like, so many little moments. I don't think I touched on this in the first book, but there is a sort of like caretaking moment where the heroine in that book gets sick. The hero comes over and kind of helps her recuperate. In this book, there's sort of a similar situation. I don't believe the heroine's sick necessarily. He comes over, he sort of takes care of her. He shows her that he is like a really good guy and not just this like playboy who's like a little bit flaky and flighty. To be fair, though, I will say the hero in this book is maybe not as much of a player. We don't really get to like see his womanizing necessarily, but we do see that he is a sporty guy who, honestly, given some of his actions in this book, kind of seems more like he has ADHD than anything, which, you know, love that. I don't know if that was like intentional representation here, but I'm feeling it mega with this hero. Yeah, there was just so many similarities. It's kind of crazy. I didn't expect there actually to be that many. I feel like I should have maybe expected it more given that the titles are the same and it kind of implies a rivals to lovers or like, you know, butting heads sort of situation. But yeah, these books are really fucking similar. Unfortunately, the sex was no exception. At least in this book, though, the sex scenes kind of started later on in the book. I want to say the first one happens about the 50 or 60% mark. Sadly, from there, it is often, there's a lot of banging that occurs and none of it was like that exciting or that, I was gonna say refreshing. Is sex in books ever really refreshing? I don't know. It was not a breath of fresh air. It was just not something that like really did it for me. I wasn't like, wow, this is so cool and unique. I did appreciate, though, just the writing of this one. I think that is the really big difference between these 2 books, which is weird because I think I'm gonna give them both 3 stars. The writing of this book, I think, just feels so much subtle, frankly. Liked that the hero and heroine get to know each other over time. There is obviously dialogue, sort of like get to know you situations, but it doesn't feel so 20 questions. It doesn't feel so, I was gonna say poorly done. That just feels mean, okay, right? Like, people are setting out to do what they're setting out to do. This book, I just think, felt a little bit better written, and I did kind of like the dog element. I thought that was nice. I also, I think, appreciated that there was a little bit more done here with the characterization. I think the strength of that last book, if there were any strengths really, the characters had more backstory, and in this book, they didn't have so much backstory, but they did seem to have slightly more unique personalities. Like, our heroine is a twin. She is the kind of like dark and gloomy twin, and she talks about that a little bit in the story, and the hero kind of talks a little bit about his personality and about why he is the way he is. I personally liked that. I liked that they accepted each other for who they were. I liked that they kind of like changed a little bit to be better for each other. I mean, it was a good book. It wasn't like the best thing I've ever read, and neither of these were, but it was a fun time. Now, who do I think won the Battle of the Face-Offs? I'm gonna consider this a draw. Can I consider this a draw? They were both fine. Both 3-star reads. I mean, I hate saying that, and I hate that this is kind of where we're at. That's the way the cookie crumbles. I'm just grateful, honestly, that neither of these were like 2 stars or under. 3 stars is pretty solid. I'm honestly kind of curious to do this again. Not just like a Kindle Unlimited reading vlog. Obviously, that's going to continue to happen, but another video where I read 2 books with the same name and tell you which is better, because it's just kind of fun and zesty. I have done this before, actually. Not for Kindle Unlimited. It was like a comparing just books generally with the same name. I think I compared like The Cruel Prince by Holly Black to Cruel Prince by A. Jade, which was an interesting one. I think that's what the title of the book was. Anyway, I've done this before, and it's fun. And if you want to see it again, let me know. Want more Kindle Unlimited vlogs, let me know as well in the comments. Yeah, I'm always wanting to see what you guys are into. Do you want to see more Kindle Unlimited from me? Let me know what sort of genres you would like me to read from Kindle Unlimited. I could do some romantasy. I could do small town romances. You know, the world's our oyster. I think the next one, frankly, is going to be romantasy. I have 3 romantasy books on my list that are like really calling to me, but I'm open to suggestions. So thanks so much for watching this one. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.